Today's lesson is Carbon Sinks, Nature's Solution to Global Warming. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And I'm Helen.
And today we're going to be talking about something called carbon sinks, and it's nature's solution to global warming. Now, of course, you know a sink is where you go to wash your hands or brush your teeth because the actual surface sinks down into a basin, and you've got a drain there, and you've got a faucet, and you can use the water there. But this type of sink is a little different, isn't it?
Yes, we're talking about natural sinks, not the kind that is used in bathrooms, but a natural sink, which can be a solution to global warming because these sinks capture carbon. So as we already know, carbon is a chemical element that's found in all living things. So it's found in humans and animals, in plants, and it also exists in some minerals, in diamonds or coal. And carbon can be a problem when there's too much of it in the atmosphere as well. But there is a way to collect carbon so that it doesn't damage the environment.
In a natural way, and that's why we're talking about nature's solution to global warming. Various things in the natural world can contain carbon. It can store carbon so it doesn't go into the atmosphere and cause global warming. So let's find out what this is all about. Let's listen to the first part of our lesson, and then we'll talk about it.
Carbon sinks, nature's solution to global warming. Carbon is an element that is vital for life on Earth. Indeed, without it, neither we humans nor any other living thing would even exist. However, despite the necessity of carbon for life, having too much carbon in the atmosphere is far from ideal because it leads to global warming. And unfortunately, with carbon emissions now at historic highs, global warming is exactly what's occurring.
大家好，标题中我们来介绍名词 carbon， 它的意思是碳。例如 ，Carbon is one of the most common elements in the universe。碳是宇宙中最常见的元素之一。又或者说 ，Some countries have decided to put a carbon tax on coal, oil, and natural gas。有些国家已决定对煤炭、石油和天然气征收碳税。接下来我们看到形容词 vital， 它的意思是至关重要的、不可或缺的。例如 ，Getting enough sleep is vital to our health。睡眠充足对我们的健康至关重要。又或者说 ，The clue was vital to solving the murder case。这条线索对解开这起谋杀案至关重要。再来，我们看到名词 atmosphere， 它的意思是大气层。例如 ，The spaceship entered Earth's atmosphere。那艘太空船进入了地球的大气层。又或者说 ，Earth's atmosphere protects us, and we can't live without it。地球的大气层保护我们，而我们没有它则无法生存。另外，这个字也有气氛、氛围的意思。例如 ，The atmosphere of the restaurant was perfect for two people on a date。这间餐厅有绝佳的气氛，适合两个人的约会。又或者说 ，Although the hotel was located in the city center, it had a relaxing atmosphere inside。虽然这间饭店位在市中心，但里头却是很悠闲的氛围。接下来我们看到名词 emission， 这个字的意思是气体或热量或光线等的排放或散发。例如Reducing vehicle emissions is important for the environment。减少交通工具的废气排放对环境很重要。或是 The factory was fined because its emissions were over the legal levels。该工厂因废气排放量超过法定标准而被罚款。另外，补充这个字的动词 emit， E-M-I-T， emit， 它有发出、散发光、热、声音、气等的意思。例如 This old communication device is emitting a radio signal。这台老旧的通讯装置正在发出无线电讯号。又或者说 The bread emits a delicious aroma when you bake it。那个面包在烘焙的时候散发出很香的味道。
Carbon is an element that is vital for life on Earth. So as we already mentioned in the beginning, carbon is important. It is a part of all life, all living things, and it's vital for life on Earth. So something that is vital is important and necessary. I can also say that oxygen is vital for human survival because without oxygen, without being able to breathe in oxygen, we would all die. So here we find out that carbon is an element that is vital, that is very important for life on Earth.
Right. For example, I could say if you're planning to open a restaurant, it's vital that you do some research. You need to learn how to cook food. You need to check out your market. Is it a good area to set up this restaurant? Are you going to fail as a business because of lack of business? Indeed, so it's vital that you do your research. And yes, indeed, carbon is very important. It is vital for life on Earth. Indeed, it goes without saying, without it, neither we humans nor any other living thing would even exist. Now, notice in this sentence, we've got the neither nor pattern, and that's when we're talking about two negative things. Neither humans nor living things could live without carbon.
Yes. However, despite the necessity of carbon for life, having too much carbon in the atmosphere is far from ideal because it leads to global warming. So even though we do need carbon for life, having too much carbon in the atmosphere is not good. So atmosphere refers to the air that surrounds Earth. It could also refer to the air that surrounds another planet. You can talk about Mars's atmosphere or the atmosphere surrounding Venus, for instance. But in terms of the atmosphere on Earth or surrounding Earth, if there's too much carbon in it, then it's not good at all for human survival or for our environment.
Indeed, and of course, here we're talking about the atmosphere in terms of the air that surrounds the Earth, but atmosphere could also refer to the general feelings of a given situation. It was a festive atmosphere at John's birthday party. Everybody was having a good time, but again, in this particular case, we're talking about too much carbon in the atmosphere. And that's far from ideal because it can lead to global warming. If you put too many greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, like carbon, like methane, you're going to have some warming up of the atmosphere, and drastic measures need to be taken to stop the effects of that. And unfortunately, with carbon emissions now at historic highs, global warming is exactly what's occurring. So an emission is when something is emitted from something. We're talking about gases being emitted from cars, from factories, from farms, etc., and they're going into the atmosphere.
Right, and emissions is often used in the plural sense when we talk about gases, substances that are emitted into the air. So you can say, for instance, the emissions from that factory are causing air pollution. So all of the gases and other dirty things coming from the factory is ruining the environment.
Right, so because we have emissions at a historic high, global warming is exactly what's happening. It's exactly what's occurring. A high here as a noun just means something that has reached a high level. We're just talking about high levels. These emissions have reached historic highs. They've never been higher than this before, except maybe thousands of years ago during certain geological epochs. Thousands of years ago, there have been shifts in the amount of carbon in the atmosphere over time. But we're concerned about what's in the atmosphere now. And with too much carbon in the atmosphere, things are going to get warmer. We're going to have more and more storms, and it's just going to be a troublesome situation. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson. Let's listen now to the second part.
This is where the phenomenon of carbon sinks comes in handy. The term carbon sink is used to describe anything that absorbs carbon from the atmosphere and stores it away for a long period of time. Conveniently for us, 3 of the most efficient and effective carbon sinks are provided free of charge by Mother Nature herself: oceans, forests, and soil.
第二部分我们看到单字 phenomenon， 它是名词，指的是现象。例如 Earthquake is a natural phenomenon， 地震是自然现象。又或者说 Scientists have been studying the phenomenon for years, but they still can't explain it. 科学家已经研究这个现象好几年了，但他们仍然无法解释。最后我们看到动词 absorb， 指的是吸收。例如 Plants grow by absorbing light energy from the sun. 植物借由从太阳吸收光能而生长。或是 The sponge absorbed the water on the kitchen table. 海绵吸收了厨房桌上的水。
So in the last part, we described a bit what could happen when there is too much carbon in the atmosphere. A situation like this could lead to global warming, and it could bring a lot of negative events to human life. So what could be a solution to this problem? Well, this is where the phenomenon of carbon sinks comes in handy. So this is the topic of the lesson, carbon sinks. And carbon sinks are a phenomenon. So a phenomenon is a situation that can be seen to happen, that can be observed. So we can also say that typhoons are a natural phenomenon that occur often in Taiwan. But if we want to talk about more than one phenomenon, then we would say phenomena. So we wouldn't say phenomenons, but phenomena. For instance, I could say that internet addiction is a social phenomenon amongst many other social phenomena.
Exactly. Phenomena is the plural form. Phenomenon is the singular. And we're talking about the phenomenon of carbon sinks. And this comes in handy. If something comes in handy, it is very useful. For example, if you're hiking in the forest, a Swiss Army knife may come in handy. It's got lots of different blades and different functions that may help you survive in the forest. And yes, indeed, carbon sinks are very useful. They come in handy. The term carbon sink is used to describe anything that absorbs carbon from the atmosphere and stores it away for a long period of time. So that's the definition of a carbon sink. It's anything that will absorb carbon from the atmosphere. To absorb something just means to suck something up and then to keep it in that particular place. I think the most common example of this would be a sponge. If you're cleaning up your kitchen sink, it will absorb the water from the sink's surface so it will be nice and clean.
Right, so something that absorbs, takes in gas, heat, or liquid. And as Roger mentioned, the most obvious example of that would be a sponge absorbing water, but you also have things that can absorb heat or gas. So this is what carbon sinks do. They absorb carbon from the atmosphere and they store the carbon away for a long period of time. When you store something away, you put it in a safe place where it can't harm other things. And when you store it away, you might also want to use that thing later on.
Exactly. Maybe you're going to store away your winter clothes until the next winter comes. And in this particular case, this is what carbon sinks do. They absorb carbon from the atmosphere and then store it away for a long, long time. And conveniently for us, 3 of the most efficient and effective carbon sinks are provided free of charge by Mother Nature herself, and they include oceans, forests, and soil. So this is very convenient for us. We'd like to have more carbon sinks to suck the carbon out of the atmosphere and store it away for a long period of time. Gee, that's going to be difficult. We need to develop some kind of technology to do that, but it turns out we don't need to because it's very convenient for us. We've already got natural carbon sinks, and they're provided free of charge without any fee by Mother Nature herself. And again, those things are oceans, forests, and soil. When we refer to the natural world, we often use the term Mother Nature. Mother Nature seems to take care of everything in the world.
Right, and the phrase free of charge means without having to pay money. Something that's free of charge is free. You don't have to pay for it. And why is these types of carbon sinks free of charge? It's because Mother Nature created them. You don't have to spend money to build them, to create them, and in that sense, they're free of charge.
Right, and I could give an example here. I needed some legal advice, so my lawyer gave me some advice free of charge. He did not charge me his usual high fee for being a lawyer, but in this particular case, Mother Nature provides these carbon sinks without any fee. They are free of charge. And again, the 3 phenomena are oceans, forests, and soil. And we'll talk about them more specifically in the next part of our lesson. Let's listen.
The countless trees that make up the world's forests absorb carbon dioxide through the process of photosynthesis and then store the carbon in their trunks, branches, and roots. Soil is another important carbon sink. In addition to giving trees and other plants a place to take root, the planet's soil absorbs and stores around a quarter of all the human carbon emissions produced each year.
The countless trees that make up the world's forests absorb carbon dioxide through the process of photosynthesis and then store the carbon in their trunks, branches, and roots. So one type of carbon sink, or something that forms a carbon sink, are the countless trees, the numerous trees that make up the world's forests. So when something makes up something else, it forms that other thing. And in this particular case, the trees that form the forests absorb carbon dioxide through the process of photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is a scientific process by which plants, usually green plants, use energy from light to combine carbon dioxide and water to produce their own food. And that's why when we have house plants, for instance, we need to place them near the window so that it can get enough sunlight, which the plants use to combine with carbon dioxide in order to grow and survive.
Exactly. So we've got lots of trees all over the world, and we've got these forests that are full of those trees, and they absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and they use this process called photosynthesis, and then the carbon is stored in their various forms, the trunks, the branches, and the roots, maybe even in the leaves themselves. Now, soil is another important carbon sink. In addition to giving trees and other plants a place to take root, the planet's soil absorbs and stores around a quarter of all the human carbon emissions produced each year. So soil is another example. Of course, we were talking about the trees. Now we're talking about soil. That is the dirt in the world. We use soil, of course, to grow plants, and that's very important. If we want to grow food, we need to have soil, and we need to have fertile soil indeed. So, of course, sometimes we put fertilizer into the soil so that we can grow various kinds of plants, rice, corn, wheat, whatever. And, of course, soil is another important carbon sink. Now let's talk about how this is a great carbon sink. In addition to giving trees and other plants a place to take root, the planet's soil also absorbs and stores a lot of carbon. So, of course, in addition to means we also have this thing. It does one thing and it also does another. So, in addition to giving trees and plants a place to grow, it also absorbs carbon from the atmosphere, especially carbon that is produced by humans when they drive their cars, when they heat their homes and stuff like that. So here we've got the term to take root. That just means a plant starts growing in the soil, the roots go down, and they have a firm grip in the dirt, and then the plant can grow and thrive.
Yes, and you can use the phrase take root also figuratively when you want to talk about your own life. For instance, you can say that you've moved to a new country and you've lived there for quite a number of years, and as a result, you've taken root in that country, which means you feel comfortable there, you feel that that is your home. So in that sense, take root can also be used figuratively to talk about life.
Indeed. So, of course, we talked about two types of carbon sinks in today's program. There are probably other ones, but again, the ones we talked about today include the trees and the soil. And as promised, we're going to talk about the third and final form of carbon sinks that we're going to talk about, and that is the oceans. Please join us then. It's time now to listen to Hanny, our beloved Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文一开始提到碳是对地球上生命至关重要的元素，那他有提到说 Without it, neither we humans nor any other living thing would even exist. 没有碳，我们人类和其他生物甚至都无法生存。这边有两个重点，第一个重点是 without 加名词搭配假设法主要子句，那可以表达出要不是怎么样，或是如果没有怎么样怎么样的意思。那我们以下要介绍两种句型。第一个句型是 without 加名词逗号，主词加上 could, would 或是 might 加上原形动词，这样的句型是用来表达与现在事实相反的情况。像 Without water, there would be no life on earth. 要是没有水，地球上就不会有生命存在咯。第二个补充的句型是 without 加名词逗号，主词加上 could, would, might 加上 have 加上过去分词 PP， 所以跟我们刚刚第一个介绍的句型就差在后面这个动词的部分，刚刚是加原形动词，现在是接完成式 have 加 PP。 那这个加 have 加 PP 的这个句型呢，是用来表达与过去事实相反的情况。例如 Without your help, we wouldn't have succeeded. 当时要是没有你的帮忙，我们就没办法成功了。好，那我们接着来看第二个重点是 Neither A nor B 表示既非 A 亦非 B， A 和 B 都不怎么样怎么样。 Neither nor 是要连接词性相同的字词，那用来连接动词的时候，时态必须一致哦。举例来说He neither smokes nor drinks. 他不抽烟也不喝酒。那这边是连接两个现在式动词 smokes 以及 drinks。好，那接着以 neither nor 来连接主词时，这个动词是要配合最靠近的主词来做变化咯。举例来说 Neither Jane nor her parents have ever been to Europe. Jane 和她爸妈都不曾去过欧洲。那例句里面我们的助动词是要配合最靠近它的主词，就是 her parents， 所以我们是用 have 而不是用 has。好，那顺便补充一下 either A or B 则是表达不是 A 就是 B， A 或 B 两者当中任何一个。那么 either ... or ... 也一样要连接词性相同的字词，在连接主词的时候，这个动词同样是配合最靠近它的主词来做变化。我们来造两个例句。He's either unwilling or unable to help us. 他不是不愿意做，就是没办法帮助我们。那这边是连接两个形容词 unwilling 以及 unable。 好，另外一个例句是 Either you or Jamie has to fix the problem. 不是你就是 Jamie 得解决这个问题。例句里面动词呢，我们是要配合最靠近的主词 Jamie， 所以呢我们是用 has to 而不是用 have to。 好，那以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Carbon. When carbon experiences extreme heat and pressure, diamonds are formed. Vital. Clean water is vital for the health and happiness of every individual. Atmosphere. The atmosphere acts as a protective blanket for the Earth by regulating its temperature. Emission. Various technologies can be used to limit a factory's emissions. Phenomenon. Gravity is a natural phenomenon that governs the motion of objects. Absorb. Eva used a paper towel to absorb the milk she spilled.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoy reading along with us. I am Helen.
I am Roger.
See you next time.